Good morning, learners. I'm Mr. Raymond Zhao. Today we are going to discuss Auditing and Assurance, Chapter 7 from the course outline. Chapter 7 is talking about audit documentation. The learners should be able to define what is audit documentation. According to auditing, audit documentation refers to is the record of all audit procedures performed, relevant audit evidence obtained, and the conclusions reached by the auditor. Then we have the qualities of good working papers. They should be as comprehensive as possible. They must contain accurate information. They should contain facts which are self-explanatory. The facts given in working papers should be readily apparent to the reader. They should be properly indexed and properly bound. They should be well secured under key and lock. They should be kept for sufficient period, and finally, any symbols used must be clearly explained. Then we move to methods of gathering the working papers. Number 1, making copies of important documents. Number 2, recording all the procedures, findings, and the conclusions arrived at. Number 3, recording all the questions raised and the responses obtained. Number 4, taking notes on important areas of client's entity. Number 5, keeping copies of communications with the clients. Number 6, filing reports of experts. And number 7, keeping copies of communications with third parties. And finally, scanning important documents from the clients. Then we move to the importance of audit documentation. This question is highly tested by the examiners. Number 1, it facilitates the review of the work done. Number 2, it makes the audit staff accountable for the work they have performed. Number 3, the working papers are used for training of new recruits. Number 4, the working papers assist in providing direction and supervision to the audit staff. Number 5, the working papers are used to control the current year's audit. Number 6, they provide evidence of the auditor's basis for a conclusion. Number 7, it provides evidence that the audit was planned and conducted in accordance with ISAs. Number 8, the working papers can be used by the auditor as its defense in a litigation against him. Number 9, the working papers can be used as a basis for negotiating the audit fee. And finally, number 10, the working papers facilitates the subsequent year's audit planning. Then we move to the organization of working papers. They are categorized into two. We have permanent audit file and then current audit file. We define what is permanent audit file. A permanent audit file is used for putting the working papers that are of long-term importance to the auditor. That is, their relevance may go beyond the current year's audit. Then the purposes of permanent audit file. Number 1, to document information which is of recurring value regarding matters appearing in the financial statements of the client. Number 2, to document information which is of permanent nature regarding the client. Then number 5, to give the audit staff who are auditing the client for the first time information regarding the client's affairs and the nature of the audit. Then we move to the contents of this permanent audit file. Number 1, it shows a brief history of the company and a summary of the annual accounts. Number 2, a description of the entity's business and its operations. Number 3, the organizational structure, showing the top management functions. Number 4, the physical and postal address of the client. Number 5, list of companies, lawyers, banks, and stockbrokers, etc. Then we move to the current audit file. It is used for filing the working papers that are of short importance to the auditor. Then we move to the purpose of the current audit file. Number 1, to enable any person, especially the audit reporting partner who is reviewing the audit, to satisfy himself that an adequate examination of the financial statements has been carried out. Number 2, to provide a record of the work planned in the current years of audit. Then number 3, to detail the work performed, including the procedures followed, tests performed, information obtained, and the conclusions reached. Then we move to the contents of the current audit file. We have the number 1, copies of the current year's financial statements duly signed. Number 2, a schedule of each item included in the income statement and comparative. Number 3, schedule of each item included in the statement of financial position and comparatives. Number 4, the audit plan and the audit programs. Number 5, internal control questionnaire. And finally, number 6, a copy of management letter. We are going to discuss management letter in the other chapters. A letter of representation, and finally, copies of circulation letters. Then we go to factors that affect the form, content, and extent of the audit documentation. I've summarized the 6 factors. Number 1, the specific audit methodology used. Number 2, the significance audit evidence obtained. Number 3, the identified risks of material misstatements. Number 4, the nature of audit procedures performed. Number 5, the size and complexity of the client's entity. Then number 6, the nature of the audit engagement. Then we go to the limitations of working papers. Under the limitations of our assembled 6 important points. Number 1, we have incomplete records. Number 2, weaknesses in the client system, such as absence of supportive documents. Number 3, technicality of the client's business. Number 4, it may be expensive and time consuming. Number 5, lack of cooperation from third parties, e.g. non-replies to circular letters. And finally, lack of cooperation from the client staff and management. Then we go to the auditor's reasons for reference to the previous year's audit files. Here we have 7 points. Number 1, to obtain background knowledge about the client. Number 2, to establish the basis of planning the current year's audit. Number 3, to check the difficulties encountered in the previous year's audit. Number 4, to identify the queries that were raised and were not cleared in the previous year. Number 5, to confirm the reporting framework applied by the client. Number 6, to avoid bothering the client's management and staff with the issues that had already been responded to. And then finally, number 7, to confirm whether the misstatements identified in the previous year's audit have been corrected. Then we move to the types or classifications of working papers. We have standardized versus unstandardized, and under unstandardized we put into the brackets customized working papers. Then we go to automated file system versus manual or physical working papers. Then we discuss standardized working papers. This is an approach where the auditor uses a standardized prepared audit manuals developed by the audit firm to be used for all audits. Unstandardized working papers. These are custom-made working papers designed to meet the needs of all the audit of the specific client, which means that these working papers cannot be used for any other audit. Then we go to automated audit files. These are computer programs used by the auditor to make recommendations easy and to assist in analyzing the client's records. Then we move to the advantages and the disadvantages. And this area of automated audit files is highly tested by the examiners in auditing and assurance. Advantages of automated audit file system. We have prepared around 10 points here. Number 1, they are easy to update and edit. Number 2, they facilitate quick assessment of risk. Number 3, they guarantee a high level of accuracy. Number 4, large amounts of data can be scanned and tested. Number 5, they facilitate faster communication of data. Number 6, they encourage uniformity of audit work since standard formats developed can be saved. Number 7, they can be transmitted electronically. Number 8, they are more secure as they are not subject to damage through wear and tear. Number 9, they free up storage space in the audit files office. Number 10, they are neater and easier to review than physical sheets. Then you go to the challenges of adoption of an automated audit file system. Here we have 8 points. Number 1, risk of data corruption by viruses. Number 2, the auditor software may be incompatible with the client software. Number 3, the computer software may be expensive to develop or purchase. Number 4, lack of computer knowledge. The usage of these files requires computer literacy. Number 5, there is high risk of unauthorized data alteration. Number 6, it requires a lot of computer time. Number 7, the audit software may become obsolete, requiring constant updating, which may be expensive. Then number 8, the risk of loss of confidentiality as the data is transmitted electronically. Then we go to the ownership and safe custody of working papers. This is explained in a UK case of 1938. Initially, the working papers were thought to belong to a client. However, a 1938 UK case set a contrary precedence. Then we go to the fact of this case, which are under Sokokin Sky versus Brett Graham and Company, 1938. The client was claiming custody of working papers on the following grounds. The working papers were collected from the client's company. Number 2, the clients had paid the auditors for the service. Number 3, the auditor is an agent of the clients and hence the working papers belong to the principal, the client. Number 4, the working papers contain the secrets of the client. The auditor, on the other hand, was also claiming the custody of the working papers on the following grounds. Number 1, the working papers are the only auditor's defense in case of liability claims. Number 2, the auditor has a right of lien on the working papers. Number 3, the auditor has a professional obligation to show the successor auditor the working papers. Number 4, the majority of the working papers were the auditor's own recordings. And finally, number 5, the auditor is not an agent of the client but an independent contractor. Then the conclusion of this case was made, then held. The House of the Lords ruled in favor of the auditors as the bona fide owner of the working papers on the grounds that the auditor is not an agent of the client but an independent contractor. Then we go to the Audit Quality Control, ISA 2220 and ISQC1. When an auditor accepts appointment, he exposes himself to a number of risks. I've prepared here 5 risks. Number 1, the risk of damages. Number 2, the risk of adverse publicity. Number 3, the risk of giving an inappropriate opinion. Number 4, the withdrawal of the practicing certificate. And finally, number 5, the risk of losing the client and future prospective clients. Then we move to the objectives of the quality control procedures. Number 1, to ensure that the audit report issued by the audit is appropriate in the circumstances. Number 2, to ensure that the audit firm and its personnel and comply with their professional and technical standards. and the applicable legal and regulatory requirements. Then we go to the quality control procedures at the individual audit level. Here the learner, I'm going to give you an assignment to research. You are going to research about clients, acceptance procedures, the engagement team, direction, supervision, consultation, documentation, and monitoring and review. Then we go to the types of quality control review. We have audit review, post-audit review, second partner review, peer review. Audit review refers to the regular review that takes place as the audit is progressing, where the working papers produced by the junior members of the audit team are checked by more senior members. Then the student should discuss the purposes of the regular review. It should take their time and research. Then we have post-audit review, which is also called final review. This is the review that takes place after the audit has been completed but before the audit report is written and signed. Here, students should discuss matters considered during the final review. Then we go to the peer review. It's an independent review of the audit forms, audited, and accounting practices. They are classified into internal peer review and external. Then my good students should discuss the objectives of the peer review, and finally, learners should also discuss the difference between the regular review and an independent review. So we have come to the end of this topic. I encourage learners to follow my page, Mwalimu Raymond Zhao, and subscribe. I will be releasing a chapter every weekend, and still we are going to revise from past papers from 2015 to 2013. So I wish you a nice Sunday service. May God bless you.